Chapter 3. The Bluff.
Caroline wakes to the shrill, bouncing morning taps from snares and fifes in the yard and pulls a pillow over her head. Then the day's possibility returns to her, and she no longer wishes to miss perhaps their final performance, kneeling then crawling on the bed to look. At the window, she peers out over the yard to see the harbour scene below. Missing from the glimmering stage was the previous night's main character. Where was the Serenity? Her father's hideous man-o'-war command ship now consumed the port cast in the role. HMS Royal Oak defied the bobs in the bay, offending the remaining natural landscapes with towering masts and obnoxious colours of the Hudson Bay Company, in imperial unison with the Union Jack. In the fleeting moments of solitude, Caroline wondered if perhaps Thomas had abandoned the stacks of the beaver bounty from the rivers and remained behind to take a commission from her father. Caroline had often encouraged the idea of settling Thomas away from the hustle of the territories. She ignorantly envisions them walking the streets of Montreal, where he would sometimes return with sparkling wine when released from work. Caroline's daydreaming is interrupted when her bedroom door opens slightly after a soft rap, and Dell peeks in.
"Mrs. Sinclair calls you, miss,"
Dell says. Caroline forced a smile for her caregiver. "I will prepare myself immediately."
"Do you need help with your braids, miss?"
asks the woman. Caroline considers the offer but says, no. Dell turns to leave. "Mama Dell." Caroline pleads after. "Thank you." Dell nods to calm herself as she exits the room. Caroline watches after a complete breath before standing to dress. As she passes between the windows, both erupt and send razors of glass across the room with pieces of her gown. Dell quickly returns to her side, and both kneel in the broken glass. What Dell says to the girl is inaudible over the roar of gunpowder thundering through the camp, and Caroline can only grapple her ears and try to read Dell's lips. Ringing replaces the dooming sound of the explosion, and Caroline pokes her ear as she thinks she hears the fifes still playing. Caroline can focus. She and Dell gather at the window and witness the territory's strength of hooded settlers, trappers, and natives overtaking the fort and its red-coated soldiers. Beneath the curtain of a bellowing black cloud, a single fire has taken the stage down in the harbour, consuming her father's war craft starting with its flags. Dell takes the extra dressing room passage from Caroline's room to her sister's adjacent room and returns with two small girls pulled against her bosom. Teresa is 6 and crying in Dell's arms beneath golden locks dusted with plaster. Melody experiences the shock of being woken in the attack and repeatedly asks,
"What?"
as she rubs her ears through her thick black hair. When Thomas throws the door open, the fierce black woman seems to hold all 3 children. She scuttles them to her rear to defend the young man who consumes the doorway. "Thomas," Caroline whispers as she brushes past into his arms.
"Come on,"
he says to the other ladies bewildered in the room. Reluctantly, Dell follows the kid as he helps Caroline with her robe.
"What?"
says Melody, left alone in the room. Out in the courtyard behind the mansion, a ladder sits against the wall opposite the maturing trunk of an already imposing oak. The young man pushes an eager Caroline into the tree before convincing the skeptic caretaker. Melody followed with a roll of her eyes, denying Thomas' hand but winking as she climbed. Musket fire nears as Thomas pulls the ladder into the tree. Through the brush and the thick cedar forest, Thomas leads the escape. Approaching the bluff, Caroline takes the lead, keen on the plan ahead, and carries on into the sun across the cliff's edge. As they approach the secret trail, Thomas takes her hand and shakes his head. In defense of her stare, he nods down to the lake's shore, where a red-coated blockade arrives to intercept the Patriot retreat on the road below. Thomas looks instead to the trail-marked lookout bluff. Caroline directs her sister out of sight and holds Dell's free hand as they embark on the trail. Thomas follows but then turns to check his pack. A pale purple ribbon flashes briefly before the dark-stained leather, and he pursues the women.
Amidst the serene beauty of a sprawling golf course, blanketed in a pristine layer of snow that glistens in the sunlight, the silver new automobile stands out conspicuously, like a rare jewel in a sea of white. Tommy, a skilled driver, deftly maneuvers the car, correcting its slide to his advantage, while several other vandalizing vehicles race after him at breakneck speed. The Rolls elegantly weaves its way through the icy fairways, guided by strategically placed bales of straw, as spectators excitedly place bets and cheer the drivers on. The frosty bunkers of sand pose no challenge to these expert drivers as they navigate to the finish line. With the finish line in sight, Tommy makes a daring slide. Downshifting, he propels the car off the last tee box, which casts an avalanche over the audience as he hurtles toward the 18th green with a silver slash. The car screeches to a swinging halt beyond a red finish line, nearly clipping several onlookers. After an alarming plunge down the final stretch, the crowd erupts in spectacular cheers. Tommy's attention is on the score from the bookkeeper, and he nods his cap in satisfaction. At the finish line, a party is held in a tent while some gamblers settle their debts, and the remaining vehicles that participated in the race arrive at the finish line either battered, smoking, or both. Tommy, the show star, receives praise and adoration from everyone around, but he ignores it and focuses solely on counting his winnings. However, he glances suspiciously back at the bookie. When Tommy tosses the keys to the littlest boy in attendance, the one wearing rags, he does so rather than returning them to the illegal sponsors. Furious, the gambler in charge frowned and clenched his fist around frustrated wads of his remaining cash. Tommy shows a crooked middle finger to the man who cheated him. Then, he walks away from the party, leaving the crowd singing his praises between him and the other lost soul. Jimmy waits against the vacant back stand at the golf course's meager lodge. He's holding Tommy's coat and breaks from smoking a cigar to ask,
"So what do I tell Chicago when you can't fulfill your responsibilities because you landed yourself in a full body of plaster? Were you out chasing peanuts? We could have taken that car off that mook and outfitted it to make some real money, and then maybe it'd make some sense. You know that Irish bug of a sheriff hates this shit."
What's he going to do? The mayor just won $1,000 off me.
Tommy answers confidently. As they walk down the road to their luxury vehicle, Tommy fits his coat around his sidearm, adding,
You tell them I was out eating peanuts and fungool, minding my business.
Oh, this is business.
Jimmy stands, nodding over his short friend.
That's right.
Tommy boasts as he situates his coat's collar.
I'm transportation.
And charitable donations.
Jimmy adds with a smirk.
Oh, you remind me I have to go see that Flatfoot again tonight.
Tommy grumbles, entering the vehicle.
So?
Asks Jimmy. He starts the engine and sends a tumultuous tremble that shudders the shades that shrouded the cab.
Fool gives me the creeps.
Tommy shakes his head, placing his cap on the dash.
He isn't with us. No way. The old man pretty much looks at the cash I take in there like he plans to burn it when I leave. Surprised it's not just greasing the horse shit around town.
Tommy felt a slight nudge on the plush Art Deco limousine curtains as a sultry voice from the back exclaimed,
You're the creep.
Tommy turned to see Serena in her glossy minx, long strawberry curls cascading down her shoulders. Serena's white pearls glimmered in the dim light of the cabin, adding a touch of luxury to the already extravagant setting. She wore nothing else, and glimmers of white skin threatened to reveal their rosy secrets. Despite her blatant teasing, Tommy couldn't help but admire how she filled the space with her presence.
Congratulations.
Serena added with a hint of sarcasm.
Hello, this must be the winner's circle.
Tommy says, climbing through the window. Jimmy stops him.
No, you can't go back there. You might as well go on a toot to celebrate because she's got to work tonight. I'll let you back there, and you'll mess her all up.
Jimmy hands Tommy their communal flask in consolation. Tommy takes a regretful look back, accepts the drink, and then asks,
So what?
So, Claire said she's got to get to the penthouse the way she designed her, or I'd be getting a lash from Sunday.
Jimmy states to lay down the law laid out by Claire, and he pulls away as Serena shrugs in tacit agreement.
Then put on a robe.
Tommy groans, fixing his coat and turning around.
Can't.
She peeps.
What? Wait. Why not? Did Claire design your tits too?
Tommy attempts to tease, but the girl nods yes seductively and shows off her breasts flushed by the paint of the madam's makeup brush.
Oh, well, yeah, they're okay.
Jimmy laughs.
Stop, you'll be fine.
Tommy sneers at Jimmy, but he won't get it.
Make up for this. Who is this guy?
Hell if I know. Some Mark, you know. Chicago sent him up for a long weekend and wants him to end up in their pocket. What do you think?
Jimmy snickers to taunt Tommy, who looks back, but Serena shrugs. Bouncing around without support or restraint, the young girl taunts him further without intending to. Behind Serena, Tommy sees the Straits shrinking in the window as they head back from the middle of the island to the Grand Hotel for Serena's big date. With a constant stream of fresh faces, neither boy knew Art motivated Claire to call up her favorite girls when she did, nor why it never seemed to be Jimmy's turn to share a night. Tommy cannot help but envy his friend while he sips his gin and leers at the taunting window of the cab via a jittering round mirror.
As new pals stroll together along the bluff's edge, James and Billy hold their bicycles on either side of Carly, taking small sips of their beer. James can see the curiosity in Carly's eyes, but he trusts his friend's charisma to keep her interested in their conversation. Meanwhile, Billy appears to have captured Carly's eye, and she listens with rapt attention as they chat. Carly shares about her uncle's prestigious position at the new college, her aspirations to pursue a doctorate, and her lifelong commitment to the academic world. James observes with admiration as Carly talks passionately about her goals and ambitions, and he can't help but feel a tinge of envy at her drive and determination. The conversation steers toward Carly's living arrangements, and she reveals that her uncle has kindly offered her his inherited cottage as a dorm room. James imagines the quaint cottage, surrounded by lush greenery and overlooking the waterways, as the perfect escape for the ambitious niece who wants to distance herself from her demanding mother, who resides in a Chicago sanitarium. James smiles and joins the talk, noting the similarity in his tale as his mother committed suicide in a hospital with the same name on the other side of town. James tells Carly so, with much enthusiasm. His attempts at solidarity miss their mark, having not contributed much else to the conversation. Carly frowns, bewildered by the strange commentary of her life. Billy shakes his head at James, but there is no use as they've reached the road's end anyway. James would be on his own from here, and Billy knew the criticism would only leave him crippled by anxiety. The stairs to town lay ahead, and Billy turned to face the other two as he prepared to head home down the bluff via the shortcut ahead. Recognizing the kind of smile that bid him farewell, Billy shamefully enjoyed the flirtatious girl.
Well, it was nice talking to you.
Billy says, getting his head and remembering James with his crush. Billy attempts to divert the affection and says,
I have to catch a boat, but the best tour guide on the island is right here.
He lifts his bike to his shoulder and pats James before bounding down the stairs. Oh, okay.
Bye.
Carly calls after. Too many seconds pass for what Billy would have allowed to qualify him as a cool, and James feels every single one of them passing like the fatigued freighter in the lake. At last, he tells Carly.
I've never been here. Billy was kidding. This is my first night here.
As Carly observed James excusing himself, she couldn't help but notice the charm in his delightful genuineness. However, her attention quickly shifted towards Billy, whom she now saw clearly. James rocked with an endearing awkwardness from the balls of his feet to his heels and back again. It made Carly smirk bashfully, remembering the soft-bellied greaser guiding James just minutes ago. Hyping up the misfit had been entertaining, remembering made Carly appreciate James and Billy even more. Oh. That's okay. Probably meant you are the best one to share a new experience with, Carly says, and placing a hand on his shoulder, she gently rubs in encouragement before passing off the brown bottle. Have a good night. Carly calls back and prances away. James rests the empty bottles in the wire basket hanging from his handlebars. A funny smile finds his lips as he retires up the path to settle into his new home. With 90 pounds of brunette inspiration and 12 ounces of stiff confidence, he bravely faces his beautiful new adventure.